When I got up this morning and took a look, I was very happy to see that Tesla was not down this morning. Okay, we got a holiday weekend, but holiday or no holiday, we have lots of developments, and we will have the full 8 shows, 9 shows. I might go only two tomorrow, but all weekend long, you're going to getting really, really good content. I'll talk to you more about that in a few minutes. It's easy to forget that the third largest auto market in the world is just really wetting its beak with regard to Tesla. In fact, it's barely doing any BEVs at all and not really any ADA or FSD. What am I talking about? Well, Tesla Ming is reporting today that good news, Tesla is crushing it in Japan. The June numbers are in. The growth is absolutely insane, and Tesla just hit a massive milestone in Japanese market. Tesla put exactly 3,997 new vehicles on the road in just the month of June. It's a 183.7 explosion compared to last June. And so far this year, Tesla has delivered a staggering 12,197 vehicles across Japan. It's on a path to getting to 25, 30,000 this year. The year-to-date number is 165% increase from last year's 4,500 units. For the very first time, Tesla took second place for single-month imported car sales in Japan, officially outpacing legacy giants in Japan like BMW and VW. So there you go. It's a key thing. I've been doing it my entire life. One of the things I believe I was really, really good at in manufacturing and distribution was distribution. You can increase your business a lot of way. You can sell more of what you're already doing into the same markets you're already selling it by advertising, promotion, etc. Or you can introduce new products, which we did every fall, so that because we were a seasonal business, and we introduced new products in the fall, so we would be filling up warehouses other than our own over the winter with those new products and increasing our sales over the winter. And then finally, there was increasing the territory, increasing the size. Now, it's not always great. Sometimes we found that sometimes it was more expensive to go into a new territory than it was worth. But you can go into new territories and expand your business. Well, this is what Tesla's doing. We're now going into South America. 2 years ago, we were barely in Japan. Now they're filling in the infrastructure that they need in Japan. Korea has just gone, nuts. Last year it was Turkey and Portugal. Spain were all, shining examples of places where we were dramatically increasing. So this is where we are right now. So when you take a look at the numbers, you can't just take into consideration how we did in the US or China, et cetera, year over year. In fact, it turns out China was just a little bit down for the second quarter. But the Chinese factory, the Shanghai factory, did just fine because the exports were crazy big. All right, Wall Street Journal has this morning, says, Elon, are you ready for this? This is wild. Wait. Here we go. Elon Musk SpaceX has developed a prototype for a there's a handset-like device designed to reshape how humans interact with artificial intelligence. And SpaceX showed them to investors when they were doing their roadshow. The rocket and AI company showed the prototype, which features a sleek design that is slimmer than an iPhone, to some investors and other stakeholders at the, prior to the company's mega initial public offering, according to people familiar with the matter. I'm surprised it's taken this long to get out. The prototype was designed to run on a proprietary operating system and integrate AI technology from SpaceX's xAI, according to some of the people. The device would use a Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset. Okay, I don't even know what that means. I'm sorry. Tell people in the comments below if you know what that means. SpaceX told some investors that the project was at an early stage. The design could change, and it's unclear whether such a device will ever even be made. Representatives for SpaceX and Qualcomm, of course, did not have anything to say about it. The project is a sign of Musk's sprawling ambitions as he builds a leading global satellite connectivity network. He grows his rocket company and he creates AI tools. AI companies are placing a variety of bets on the future and the form and the functionality of AI-powered devices. So he's not alone. Everybody's looking at what will be the next big deal. Will it be glasses? Will it be some kind of a helmet? Will it be something that you wear, some kind of wearable other than glasses? The Wall Street Journal has reported, and Musk denied it, that Musk has in the past weighed building a smartphone due to frustration over how Apple controls distribution of the third-party apps. The idea of making a phone makes me want to die, Musk said last October, but if we have to make a phone, we will. In February, Musk denied that his company that was the denial I was talking about, denied that he was making a phone, pushing back against a Reuters report that SpaceX was building one that would connect directly to Starlink. We are not developing a phone, he posted on X. Some investors in X and Tesla were told that Musk has long envisioned a consumer device to serve as a platform for his venture's various technologies. A device could help Musk become less reliant on other companies. Musk's XAI chatbot is typically used via Apple or Android devices. Musk's Starlink satellite service already sells a dish to connect to the internet, and it offers cell phone services in dead zones through partnerships with companies including T-Mobile. And of course, last week we heard about the possibility of some kind of a partnership with I forget their name. Anyway, a big telecom company. I just can't get it. Anyway, the device prototype SpaceX recently showed investors draws on the philosophy behind Musk's Everything app, a concept he's championed since he acquired social media platform Twitter, now X. In 2022, some of the people familiar with the matter said, often referred to as super apps, these software programs are popular in Asia and incorporate services that Americans usually access by downloading separate apps. So you get a super app that does all the work. Users in China have WeChat and AllPlay, and these are owned by local technology giants Tencent and Ant. You tap the mini apps and features available on the platforms. You can use them to transfer money, order food, books or travel, and also to play games. This model has challenged the traditional app store business. Chinese companies are turning to AI to reinvent this super app model. They're integrating AI agents into existing super apps, are trying to turn popular AI chatbots into the nucleus of new everything apps. All right, and then we have this from, this is from ByteDancer, or ByteDance XXX, BYTE Dan XXXX. And this is a report from my favorite reviewer, which is Zach. Yeah, Zach. So Zach this morning did a 4-day review of the 14 Lite, and he wrote it's massive, huge, so long. But here's his conclusion. I am so impressed with how good this version is for the first iteration of FSD 14 Lite. It's actually amazing, and the hype is real here. FSD V14 Lite has definitely brought new life to Hardware 3 vehicles, even with only 1/8 of the memory bandwidth of AI4. The capability is extremely impressive and smarter decision-making. It has smoother driving. New features make it way more enjoyable and capable to have the end-to-end experience. Well, just as we seem to be on the verge of a major expansion of Robotaxi, we are also seemingly getting close to serious production of Optimus. But by the way, that serious expansion of Robotaxi, I'm not sure if I have a separate report, but we have now put Robotaxis on the ground in Miami, starting from zero. As soon as they've been launched, they have no supervision. Very big story. And Phil Beisel and I will cover that in detail tomorrow morning. So that's one of the shows that you want to pay attention to tomorrow. It's an outstanding show, by the way. I mean, yeah, we get into some stuff on AI too, both subjects. You don't want to miss them. This is Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. They say Tesla's next generation Optimus, the V3 hand, is getting close to human level. Tesla engineers just shared new details of the Optimus 3 hand, and the progress is striking. They're now saying that as they move into Gen 3 in mass production, the hand is getting very close to human functionality and also form factor. One engineer described it clearly. It won't even look like a robot. It will look like a human in a superhero suit. It will be something revolutionary. The level of dexterity and human-like design is the critical milestone. The hand is one of the hardest parts of building a truly useful humanoid robot, and Tesla is iterating extremely fast. Well, this is Randy Kirk, by the way, in case you hadn't figured that out. And this video is sponsored by Rebellionaire. Rebellionaire is a registered investment advisor. It's built for investors that think differently outside their concentrated wealth. They think differently about concentrated wealth. They commonly have concentrated wealth in a few stocks. A lot of investors in this audience follow companies like Tesla and SpaceX, not because they're chasing a headline, but because they believe these businesses are tied to major long-term themes like autonomy, robotics, energy, space, satellite technology, and artificial intelligence. Rebellionaire works with investors who hold concentrated positions, including interests in companies like Tesla and SpaceX, and they provide investment management, financial planning, and related advisory services. Some of their work includes helping clients evaluate portfolio concentrations, to avoid risk, to provide risk management. They give tax considerations to the whole thing, income strategies, charitable planning, liquidity needs, and long-term financial goals. Now, for more information about Rebellionaire, you just go to their website, rebellionaire.com, and that's spelled with an A-I-R-E, Rebellionaire. Well, you don't go to the pump anymore, right? I don't go to the pump anymore. I don't really pay attention to gasoline prices anymore as I'm passing them on the freeway or the highways and the byways. So I thought this would be a good morning to check it out. So I asked Grok for a little bit of help on this. So U.S. gasoline prices pre-conflict had gotten down under $3 a gallon. Are you ready for that? It was under $3 nationally, national average, at $2.96 to $2.98 a gallon. During the peak of the conflict, which was in May, it got all the way up to $4.55 to $4.62 a gallon. That's pretty crazy, going from $2.98 to $4.55. So you can see why people would be getting a little upset. However, current, right now, July 3rd, 2026, $3.82. So we're kind of splitting the difference between the high being $4.55 to $4.62, and the low, $2.98, we're at right in the middle at $3.82. So this is good news, and I think it's going to come down a lot more. We've already gone down more than that amount in terms of oil. It takes a little while for the distillates to catch up. So gasoline wholesale prices have come down even more than the pump. And it takes a couple of minutes for those wholesale prices to get through to the pump. And people say, hey, that shouldn't be the case. It just shouldn't happen that way. It should be that if it goes up fast, it should be able to come down fast. Well, it will come down fast based on competition. It will go up fast based on fear. So, we have this situation, fear and greed, which is in the stock market. Well, it's also in commodities. It's also when you're a retailer or a wholesaler. And so on the way up, you're afraid of what you're going to have to pay next week. So you raise your prices very quickly as the price is going up. On the coming down side, you're going to be greedy and you're going to wait for the competition. Is the competition coming down? Well, then I got to come down too. If they're not coming down, well, maybe I don't need to come down. So this is not a conspiracy. It's not something, cartel-like. It's just natural human instincts, and the same kind of human instincts that you use when you trade stocks. So those are all from AAA. So we're still elevated at this point, but we are coming down. All right, so what about those other programs this weekend? Well, later on today, you're going to get Larry Goldberg, And no, it's not the regular Friday show. You see, Cathie Wood comes out once a month with an outstanding, amazing economic report where she takes a look at the whole picture. And if you don't watch it every month, then you miss so much. It's like waiting for my numbers every morning and every afternoon. If you're not hearing those on a daily basis and seeing what's happening, how are things trending? What's going up? What's going down? Why are they going down? Getting some analysis. If you're not doing that, you are really missing out one of the most important parts of what I do here. Same thing with Cathie Wood. If you listen to it once in a while, well, you can go, oh, that's interesting for right now. But if you listen to it every single month and then you listen to Larry and I talking about it and adding our perspective, then now you can see again longer term trends. Where is the economy headed? Why is it doing what it's doing? Very, very valuable. That's why Larry and I listen to it. And that's why we decided to start doing the show. Anyway, that'll be on later today. I'm going to say 5 or 6 o'clock, something like that. And then, as I mentioned, uh, Phil Beisel tomorrow morning, and you're still going to get lots more this weekend. Brian Wang will definitely be on tomorrow some point, and my regular Monday morning show that happens on Sunday night, and lots in between. We'll see how many shows there's going to be. And then last night you had Bradford Ferguson on, and actually you might have already watched that because about a jillion people did. But if you have some time and you didn't see that yet, you should go back and check it out. I'll put the card right here. All right, a little bit of a shorter show today, but it's the weekend. So it's been great talking to you.